Forsooth, what dost thou question today? Because today, the game we're talking about is Tales of the Arthurian Knights. So that question would be, what is your favorite folklore period? Now, I know technically this is later than folklore because the reason that Tolkien wanted to write Lord of the Rings in the first place, two answers. One, he had a beautiful language he created, and he wanted a world for that language to live. But two, he wanted England to have its own folklore.
Under the paths of Mirkwood, visit Lake Town.
So this is Middle Age folklore. This is legend, myth, stories about King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Fascinating stuff. Many of you think Monty Python when you think this, but I do also think that. But I also think the illustrated classics as a kid, and also that Super Nintendo game where you got to play as Lancelot, Percival, or Arthur that was so great from Capcom. I have it on multiple ways to play it here at the house on the Switch and the little SNES Classic thing. Because today, Tales of the Arthurian Knights from Wizkids is an adventure game with a big book like Tales of Arabian Nights, but it's set in the world of the Arthurian Knights with a K. See what they did there? Now let's take a look at how this game plays, what it does, and we'll come back up, talk final thoughts right now. Alright, this is Tales of the Arthurian Knights from Wizkids in the middle of the game. I mean, literally quite the middle because it's the second age of 3 ages. Now, if you played Tales of the Arabian Nights, which I have not, there's some similarities here, but this is based on a story-driven, random encounter narrative. Essentially, you're going to be trying to get destiny points to win. Now, there's cooperative and competitive play, but essentially, you're going to be going around the board and you're going to be having encounters. On your turn, you're going to move, have an encounter, and then figure out what the encounter tells you. Now, the encounters are based on this gigantic hardback book over here, full of stories. Now, this is pretty cool. The way this works is you can move based on your movement range, which is set over there on that board here. It's your destiny, romance, and villainy track, and that's your renown track. You can move up that track, and the further you go, the further you can move, as well as you have your own player board here with different skills. Now, the skills are going to come into play based on the scenario. You'll notice out here there are some markers here. This is for the Grand Quest, the ones that are yellow that match the first age. That would be what is over here in this Grand Quest, and there are multiple of these. It's a way to get more points. As well as you have the Milieu card over there, which tells you kind of basically what's going to happen. Now, essentially, with some of the encounter cards, you're going to have these different numbers starting here. So all of the ones in round 2 will start in 23s. All the ones in round 3 will start in 24s. And same thing for round 1. The way it works is, let's say you get to a location. So Carla here is Dame Enid. So she is at this location, Camelard. 2 is the city value. Now that may come into play, it may not. You'll draw a card from this deck and a card from this deck. So the encounter and feature. Now the way it works is, with a regular encounter, you're going to put these numbers together. So now we have a lost hermit. So we'll turn to entry number 1615 in the book, and I'm not going to read it to you. There are quite some interesting things in here that happen spoilery-wise. But essentially, it's going to be like this. You'll have all the different entries. So here's 1615. You'll read the text to the people. You'll give them the 2 options. You can do this or you can do this. Depending on what they pick, you'll go to that entry in the book. And then, usually, it's going to give you a skill to check. So let's just say it says you want to sneak around using your cunning. So you'll look at your cunning. Carla has actually we'll use mine because mine's a 2 over here. You'll roll the dice. This is a 3 plus 2. Now it may say you have to beat a 4. Sometimes it may say you may have to beat a 3. Sometimes it'll say you have to beat 2 plus the location number. So let's say we're here, that would still be a 4. This is 3 plus the amount of skill I have in it, which is a 2. So that means I have 5, which means I beat that. So you'll read the success and gain the rewards for it. Let's just say though it was here at this location. That would be a 3 plus 2, but this is a 2 plus 5 for a 2 plus the location number. So some of these location numbers are going to be a good bit higher. Now there are other cards too that don't do exactly like this. Let's say the Strange Beast. So you'll place this in the realm, or in the era you're in, up against this, and depending on the type of terrain you're at, so let's say she was in the forest, you'll read 2317. If she was in a city, you'll read 2305. And that's how that changes. And what's interesting is, depending on where and when you encounter these, sometimes it may be the exact same beast in a completely different scenario, which is pretty cool. If you have special encounters such as location cards or your quest, you can do those. Now, our quests are on the board based on these tokens here, based on the quest that you have, things like the Lost Dwarves or the Strange Bed. These are things you're going to encounter and try to get completed as well to gain destiny points, because essentially the main goal is destiny points. It's not a narrative game in the sense of here's the story we're playing this game. It's we're going to have these random encounters. And you'll notice also there are story cards over there, or story tokens, that sometimes it'll say if you have story token 14, you can do this. If you don't, do this. Yet to encounter that. Like I've seen them in the game, but we haven't collected a token and gotten to use the token yet, because obviously the random playability of how these encounters come out is different. Now, at the end of each round, or at the end of each era, you'll collect a certain number of points. You'll move up certain skills. Some things will give you treasure, which is pretty cool. There's a lot of different treasures here. I don't want to read through all of them yet, because I like the little bit of spoilery, or lack of spoiler nature. Now, you also have this entire deck per character of status cards. These are different statuses that do different things. Some are good, some are bad. You'll put a token on here when you get the status, and each turn you'll roll down. Well, let's do a better one. You'll move it down to where when it rolls off, you no longer have that status, good or bad. And that is essentially how you're going to play. You're going to keep moving around, collecting destiny points based on your encounters, building up your skills so that you can complete encounters easier. And the person with the most points at the end of the rounds wins the game. All right, that is Tales of the Arthurian Knights from Wizkids. Now, as you know, with the rubric we do, we take all the different components, concept, board mechanics, art direction, art, gameplay, and rule book, and we combine all those scores that I give each of those individual ones, average those together, and get the final score for the game. Let's start with concept. I give this a 9 because I love this lore. I love Arthurian Knights. I love all the dashing, heraldry and all that stuff. I think it's phenomenal. I just love that. But I also love the fact that this is that storybook, and you have all those different encounters you can have, and some of them are going to be similar to other encounters you have, but every time you play it's going to be different, and there's so many entries and so many branching choices you can take. I really love the concept, so the concept gets a 9 from me. Next is the board layout. Love the way it looks. You've got the map there, you've got your renown track, you've got your other track to track the timers, and that's pretty much it. There's not a lot to it. It doesn't need to be a lot to it. The board layout is simply what's there. Even your player board layout is simple. You have your skills at, are at a +1 or at a +2, 3, 4, 5. To me, that is just so simple. There's not a lot to keep track of in this game. So that gets an 8 from me, the board layout. Mechanics are a 9. Here's why. Love how simple it is. This game looks like, if you throw it on the table and tell people what it is, like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so complicated. But it's not. You move and you have an encounter. And your encounter is based on, do you want to do this or this? And you pick this, and you follow that trail. If you do this, you follow that trail. And it's based on your skills. That sounds simplistic, but that's the whole point of why I gave the mechanics such a high mark, is because you're still playing this wonderful experience in the Arthurian Knights, but you don't have to worry. Like, you can literally do like Mansions of Madness with this. Someone who's never played, you just say, sit down, we're going to play this, and you don't even have to teach it. You do your turn, and they see, oh, that's all you do. I love the status cards, that everybody gets all those different statuses and how that affects you. I love the different quests. I love the fact that there's location cards, milieu cards, and then there's the regular encounter cards. To me, it's just great. So art direction is also a 9. There are no symbols that don't make sense because there's actually very few symbols. Most everything is text-based, so it actually explains itself pretty easily. There's almost nothing you need to go, I wonder what that means, because it's all text-based. So that gets a 9 as well, just because everything is right there and it's so simple to understand. Art is a 9. My goodness. The map looks great. The book is awesome for the components. I wish it was bound a little nicer, but again, trying to keep costs somewhat down because this is already a very, very nice book. But, it is what it is. But the player art, the character art, just phenomenal. I think that's such a good looking art style. And you have so many different styles. Like, I like Sir Palamedes the best. Just really, really, really great looking game. Gameplay, 8.5. Love this. The only reason I ding it down from a 9, it's the only one that didn't get a 9 in this category, is because basically it can feel hopeless on some turns. Because what I mean is you're only playing 12 rounds. And you may have to move somewhere that is 5 spaces away to really get some points, even though every turn you're going to have an encounter. But you may not be able to do what you really want to do to finish your quest or to get further in the game because of that. So in that sense, it's an 8.5. However, I love the system of the randomized encounters, taking the feature card and taking the other card and putting those two numbers together and getting that number and going to that quest. To me, that's great. I love the location cards as well, where you get that, you read the first one, and then when you get to there, because you now have access to those areas of power, whatever they call them, you can then go to there and do that encounter. The story tokens, right? Those are cool because in your mind you go, I want to know what every one of those does. That's really cool as well. So 8.5 on gameplay. Rulebook's at 8.5 as well. Very good rulebook. Explains every part of the phases really well. Couple things are left out that I wish were in there more carefully, like the status of accompanied. Because accompanied means you get somebody with you and you take one of your tokens of whatever it tells you and put it on that card and it gets a +1 to dice rolls. Now, it's not explained in the book, but if you're at a +4 on, let's say, cunning, and then you get accompanied and you have to put cunning on there, you only get +1, that's a demotion. Now, I guess thematically you could say the fool who's traveling with you, because that's who we had just now, slows you down, maybe takes away from your cunning. So I don't quite understand that. I wish there was a little more clarity of if you're at 0 or 1, put it on this card, but because that status never goes away. So that's the only quibble there. Total all comes out to an 8.7. I would round that up because it's actually an 8.7 plus to a 9. Game's great. Absolutely love this game. It's a fantastic game. Tales of Arthurian Nights probably going to be in the number 1 or 2 slot for my game of the year. It's so good. Absolutely love this game. Go check it out. I'm Brian Drake here on the Dice Tower. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Dice Tower Brian. Until next time, we'll see ya.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. You can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vassell.